Was Jumbo-Visma the team of this Classics campaign?
No.
Is Demi Vollering the top favorite to win Tour de France Femme?
Yes.
Is cycling more predictable due to the new generation?
No.
Did Remco pull off his white rainbow shorts?
Yes.
I've got the spots, the sickness. There's the twins in my brain.
So here we are. The classic season is over. From Jumbo-Visma coloring opening weekend over Team SD Works, winning almost all races, to Tadej Pogacar fulfilling his Tour of Flanders dream. This classics campaign was a blast. Besides reviewing Liège-Bastogne-Liège, we'll have a look at the most intense and most disappointing moments of this spring in this episode. And not only the usual suspects Bram and Yves are joining us today, but so is Josh. Hello, Josh.
Hi.
A triple did not finish for your cycling idol during the Hilly Classics. Did you enjoy the Classics despite David Gaudu's failures?
It took the shine off what would be otherwise a brilliant trifecta of races. But he'll be back, stronger and better than ever, once the hay fever season's over. I believe.
All right, Bram and Yves, you guys must have had opposite feelings at the end of Liège-Bastogne-Liège, I think?
But I don't know. The best guy in the race won. And I just think it was a pity that Pogacar crashed before the live coverage even started. But Remco is a deserved winner, and I was looking forward to the battle, Tadej versus Remco, that we sadly didn't see.
And of course, our Remco hype train driver, he must have a word as well.
I mean, I think it's a bit of a shame that some people would say, and Patrick Lefevre is one of those, say, Remco won because Pogacar crashed. No, that's just bullshit. I think he was the best person in the race who finished, and that's part of bike racing. It's just part of the sport. So yeah, honestly, I'm very, very happy. And yeah, I was personally not convinced by the white shorts, but you know, it is what it is.
Back to Josh. Josh, in one of the very first episodes of this podcast season, you said you didn't get the hype around Remco Evenepoel. Do you get it by now?
Yeah, I think I probably do. It was spectacular, wasn't it? I mean, I think as soon as he was on the start list and Pogacar was out, everyone knew he was going to win. And there's very few riders who that applies to. He's just on a different level to 99% of the peloton. So yeah, I think I'm back on the Remco hype train.
All right, let's go back to Sunday morning, when a pretty strong breakaway left the peloton, within there Osborne and Velasco. Any thoughts?
Yeah, if I
congratulations to Dietrich for predicting that Osborne would make the break. I was quite at the moment where he was saying, it was like, are we really predicting who's going to be in the breakaway? But you know, he was right, and Osborne stayed up front for a very long time. So good job.
He was right with Osborne being in the break, but he also said that the break would make it difficult for the peloton to catch them, and that wasn't really how it evolved. I think only Velasco was able to follow Tratnik.
Exactly, I think Velasco was pretty impressive.
And he was even in top 20 in the final results as well, by Velasco. So a very impressive ride by the guy from Astana.
Not a thing we can say a lot this season.
But that's for a bit later in this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, after a few hours of racing, we got the message that there was a crash in the peloton with Mikel Honoré and Tadej Pogacar involved. Few moments later, Pogacar left the race and went to the hospital, and the guy ends up with a fractured wrist. So that's how fast your classic season can be over.
Yeah, you just got to ask Victor Kampenaerts.
Exactly.
But I hear a lot of opposite stories about when Pogacar would return. People were saying initially 12 weeks, then 6 weeks if the healing process is right. But then I saw an article from the team doctor yesterday or the day before that he would be able to ride on his bike next week or the week after that. Not at the same intensity, of course, but that means he will not lose.
And indoor, I think.
Yeah, but it means he will not lose all of his fitness. And we all know Pogacar is one of a kind, and he will be ready for the Tour de France if there is nothing happening, of course, like complications or something.
I think also for his schedule, it kind of works out because I think he would have taken a week off anyway this week because he's transitioning from his classics period to preparing for the Tour. So he would have taken a little bit of rest anyway. But of course, an injury like this isn't going to help.
It's not what you want, but between now and the Tour de France, it's only Slovenia on his schedule, and that's even skippable for Pogacar, certainly after the last 2 editions, where he made the Slovenians happy for being there at the start. So I think they will accept Pogacar not being there for once, and maybe they can ask Roglic to go.
Can we agree about the claim that Soudal-QuickStep rode a perfect race last Sunday?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd say they did. I mean, they used the teammates, or Remco used his teammates perfectly, didn't he? They all kind of got into the race for as long as they needed to, and then he was left with, was it 1 or 2 at the bottom of La Redoute, and that was it. That was all he needed. They did look a bit strange, didn't it? I only caught some of the race, but kind of 80k to go, he only had like 3 teammates, and you're starting to think, oh, if they burn through these too quickly, it could be bad news. But I think he knew. I think the team knew exactly what they were doing, and they paced it to perfection.
Exactly. Some of his domestiques, they really counted for 2. I think Vervaken, for instance, definitely Ilan van Wilder. Even the sick Mauro Schmidt was at the head of the peloton for I think 2 hours of racing. So it was a pretty impressive ride by the team of Patrick Lefevre.
Van Wilder might have been, did the shortest pull of them all, but the way he climbed up that redoute was very impressive. I think there were only 5 riders left in the wheel of Remco, and Remco didn't even have to put his effort in at that point. So big kudos to Van Wilder as well, and he's ready for the Giro, as is Vervaken and the others. The team is ready to shine in Italy.
Yeah, you're saying that Van Wilder had the shortest job, but still it might have been the most important one, I think.
Yeah, certainly.
On La Redoute there. Yves and I, we were watching the race together, and you could feel the moment was coming on La Redoute, weren't you?
Yeah, we felt that it was gonna happen, but Remco waited quite a while to launch. Van Wilder was really dying at the front of that little group, but Remco just didn't want to go yet and wanted to go on the last part of La Redoute. And I think if I recall correctly, I said to Hannes, Remco might not have the legs, but then 2 minutes later,
Damn, you were wrong.
I was wrong. So
he did actually say that he wanted to go earlier, but his back wheel slipped when he tried going, and it was like a painted bit of road. So that's where he sort of lost a little bit of momentum and got back behind Van Wilder. So that's why he waited that long.
In the end, there was only one rider who was able to follow Remco Evenepoel for a while. That was Tom Pidcock. Did you guys expect that before the race, when the Remco attack was kind of planned? I think that he would be the one able to follow the world champion.
I think so, yeah. I mean, the start list, I think it's probably fair to say, is not the best start list Liège has ever had. And if you look at Amstel the previous week, Pidcock was the only one, even if it was only momentarily, who could follow Pogacar. So I think it probably follows. But I think he played it quite well. kind of knowing not to follow Evenepoel this time, because he made that mistake with Pogacar, and I think he's learned from that, which is good, because he does seem to have a habit of blowing up a bit, and he managed to not do that this time.
What do you think was the biggest difference between Pidcock following Pogacar in Amstel and Pidcock trying to follow Evenepoel here in Liège?
I do think the one probably directly influenced the other. I think, he's a very strong rider, but he's also quite canny, or he can be quite canny. But I think sometimes Pidcock relies too much on being or he thinks he's the strongest rider. So if you can kind of add in that tactical decision-making element as well, of knowing you've been beaten, what's the next best result you can get, I think that Amstel loss probably did him a big favour, actually, especially when you think he came third. He didn't even kind of fall off and come second. He nearly got caught by, was it Lutsenko and someone else? So I think it actually probably, I don't want to say scared him because it's a bike race, but kind of made him aware that he isn't unbeatable, and he needs to kind of pace his efforts a bit more.
And still, a few minutes after the attack of Remco Evenepoel, Pidcock got dropped anyway. And I think the first thing he did, if I recall that correctly, was he took something to eat, right?
Yeah, he grabbed a bottle with a gel and he immediately took that gel. We thought at that moment, not again, but he was able to recover quite well and got second in an impressive way as well, together with Healy and Buitrago. You can say he tried to follow Remco. It's ballsy to try and follow Remco, I need to be honest. Not a lot of people are able to be with Remco after La Redoute. And then on a slight drag uphill, it was not even a categorized climb, he dropped. Was it smart dropping or was it dropping? Did he drop to know I want to be second, or was it damn those legs are dead, I'm out?
I think
it was a combination.
I think in the post-race interview he said like it would probably be better to go for second because he felt that Remco had something else in his legs than he had. So yeah, but I don't think that he was completely dead. To be fair, he had to close the gap right before to Remco because he was able to come back in the small descent. So at that moment, he might have not had the legs either way.
All right. In third and fourth place, we see the names of Santiago Buitrago and Ben Healy. Were those the names before the race you would expect to end up in the top 5?
Healy was
in top 5?
After his performance in the Amstel Gold and in the Brabant Spel, I can't say I expected him to be in the top 5, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was in the top 5. And he fully deserved to be there. He made the race hard to be able to be in that chasing group with Buitrago and Pidcock. I think Buitrago was the biggest surprise for me on that podium. Didn't expect him to be there.
Yeah, when our preview rider, Erythropoetina, gave some stars before Liège on Saturday, I think it was, he gave 5 stars to Ben Healy. And back at the time, I was thinking like, damn, what's this? I've never seen this on my Twitter feed. But yeah, looking back at it now, kudos to him.
Yeah, I mean, like you've said, after Amstel, it's not really a surprise that he's there. If you can be second behind Pogacar, you can be potentially second behind Evenepoel as well. The 5 stars and having him win, I think that would have been very difficult. And yeah, he clearly has some work to do on his sprint. But honestly, yeah, I think we'll talk more about surprises of the season, and I think we'll mention him. But wow, what a season already for him!
It's crazy if you look at his last 2 years. Last year was his first year as a professional, and he was part of our Young Wolves thing where we follow some young riders. Last year the results weren't really there. He performed well, but he wasn't really high on any major race in the classification.
He almost won in Tour of Norway, I think.
Yeah, where
It was against Remco as well, I think.
where Remco Evenepoel, the bastard, took away a win from our Young Wolf. But then this season, he completely exploded in the Copie Bartali together with Padun, if I recall correctly. And since then, since that stage race, everybody talks about him. Crazy story.
Exactly. Remco Evenepoel rode one Ardennes Classic this season. Demi Vollering, she had 3 hilly classics on the program. And yeah, she won all 3 of them.
Anyway, I want to be a rider at SD Works as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bram.
There's nothing really much to say about it. The way that she won all of them is also with relative ease almost, especially when it comes to Flèche Wallonne, where it seemed very easy. And yeah, I think today or this Sunday, the sprint, it's always a bit 50-50, especially against Longo Borghini, who of course has a good sprint herself. But yeah, very dominant in the hilly classics.
But still, they waited, I think, pretty long to start that sprint. Wasn't it at the sign of 150 meters to go? They started sprinting?
Yeah, I think they were like really counting on the explosiveness of the legs. I don't know whose favor that is, like who's in favor for that. I think Longo Borghini started on the front, so maybe that was her thing of like, okay, she has to pass me, so I'll start really late. It didn't quite work out for her.
All right. Liège-Bastogne-Liège review is a wrap. So let's move over to the classics review in general. We're going to do a few rounds. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and every single one of you can give me his honest opinion. First, I'm curious to hear your moment of this spring in both the men's and the women's races. So let's start with the men's.
For me, the moment of this spring for the men was Mathieu van der Poel. His attack on the Poggio, knowing he was in a group with Ganna, Van Aert and Pogacar. The way he rode away from them was exceptional. That acceleration was something we haven't seen before in a long time in Milan-San Remo. That someone is able to establish that gap in such a short distance. Like, he only attacked almost at the top of the Poggio, and he was really able to put the gap into a Pogacar who was riding 105% full gas. So that was my moment of this spring for the men's.
I want to ask you one question about that moment. Don't get me wrong, Van der Poel was obviously the strongest that day, but I remember us discussing the fact if Pogacar was already at his highest level on that day, and I think we said, yes, he is. Do you still think he was, looking back at it now?
It's very difficult to say with Pogacar, but Pogacar is top level from February till the end of September. When is he 100%? I think we only saw the best Pogacar in the Ronde van Vlaanderen this year. That was peak Pogacar, in my opinion. So Sanremo was 99.8%, E3 99.9%, and then Ronde van Vlaanderen 100. But yeah, no, Pogacar wasn't at his best then without Sanremo.
All right, nice moment. Josh, what's yours?
see, so Bram's gonna hate me because I'm gonna slipstream him and beat him on the bike throw with going for Carrefour de l'Arbre at Paris-Roubaix. I'm going to be slightly different to what Bram is going to say, I think, because I'm going to class it as a moment. Just the whole sector was just possibly the most bonkers 90 seconds of bike racing I've ever seen. I mean, it had the heartbreak, didn't it, of Degenkolb crashing out. Wasn't really anyone's fault, just one of those things, which I think made it even more heartbreaking. And then, wow, looking so strong. Everything finally seemed to be going his way. And then you just see him slip back, and on British Eurosport, Adam Blythe going, he's radioed in, he's got a puncture. And you just, all of the excitement of the race seemed to just drain away immediately. But yeah, I don't think I'll be forgetting that kind of 90 seconds of bike racing in a very long time. It was spectacular, if not good, I guess you'd say. I didn't enjoy it anyway.
Bram, you want to add something to that?
I mean, the moment I wrote down was the puncture for Wout van Aert. That sort of, killed his hope to get a cobbled monument again this year. So yeah, I really felt for him at that moment. That's why it's the moment of the classics for me.
And still, of all those moments, you pick one nightmare moment to be the moment of this spring.
I mean, I can also say Remco's attack on La Redoute, but that would be more in character for me then.
Before I reveal my moment of the spring, I would like to invite all listeners on YouTube to put their moment of the spring in the comments, so feel free to write it down. But yeah, as you might have guessed, my moment of the spring was Tadej Pogacar on Eau de Quaremont. I already said that multiple times in this podcast, I think. I've never seen someone climbing Eau de Quaremont, as fast as he did in Tour of Flanders. And even the fact that he attacked before the cobbles in Idri Harelbeke is still legendary for me. So, yeah, let's move over to the women's races.
For me, it's Kopecky and Nokere. The whole story behind that win is just emotional, maybe. Like 2 or 3 days before Nokere, she lost her brother. And then the way she performed in that race, she had 4 legs. She was riding for her brother. And it was emotional to see at the finish, and that's my moment of the spring in the women's peloton.
Yeah, that interview after the race was beautiful in a way, don't get me wrong. But I remember her saying that they were the two of them pushing the pedals that day, so
it was heartbreaking, but the way she puts her mind on that race while so much is happening in her private life, and her brother was in her mind the whole race, I'm sure of that, and she wanted to win it for him. And I think that's very beautiful, and one of the most beautiful moments this spring.
All right, Josh?
Yeah, so I've gone for something slightly left field, but I've gone for Pfeiffer Georgie's win at Bruges de Pan. I've been watching her quite a lot since I saw her at one of the Tour Series events, I think, ages and ages ago. And she's been kind of slowly getting better and better. She's had some pretty decent results in the last couple of seasons, and she's been pretty good for GB on the track as well. And then she came third in one of the UAE stages behind the big two of Phoebes and Cool. And then just the way she slipped away in the last, I think it was the last 10k of Bruges de Pan against that opposition as well. I mean, admittedly, they didn't work together very well, but when does Group 2 ever work together well? I just thought it was a real breakout performance. I kind of put her name on the map. And she had a solid rest of the season as well. But yeah, that win at Bruges de Pan is my moment of the season.
I see someone shaking his head, so that
Josh,
means he would like a word.
How long do you follow Domestique, and how long are you part of the podcast?
Well, I mean, I only joined last August, and I've been watching Fight for Georgie for longer than that.
Who was part in the chasing group, Josh?
Yeah. Well, look, she didn't work with the Group 2 very well, but it's Group 2's fault. It's the body of Group 2, right? Like it's no matter who's in that group. If you're in Group 2, all teamwork skills fall out of the window. Like it just you can't cooperate. It just seems to be, I think, a theme actually of this classic season is that if you kind of can get a gap, Group 2 doesn't work, even if it's got each favourite rider in it.
I like how you try to explain it, but no. Let's move over to Bram.
No, Yves, for the listeners who don't know you yet, would you like to make your point? Who are you talking about?
Shari Bossait, that was her chance for that breakthrough win.
All right.
Bram.
There it was the name.
I think it's just Hannes' mission to have Yves say Shadi Bosset's name in every episode this season.
We need to make a domestic bingo with a couple of words and then something like that.
I think for me the moment for the women classics was the sprint at Strade Bianche between Vollering and Kopecky, because it sort of showcased a little bit of the frustration side of SD Works, where they clearly, well, after the finish, they didn't see eye to eye. And in the rest of the classic season, it was perfect. They were very happy with each other. They rode for each other when needed. But at that moment, you kind of saw, something's not quite right here. But in the end, like, both of them deserved that win. So
Yeah, my moment of the spring in the women's race is also about Team SD Works. I've gone with Kopecky giving the sign to attack to Vollering on the Go-Back during Amstel Gold Race, because I think that moment really showed how hard you can control a race. It was like playing PlayStation. I think Yves said that in the podcast here. Kopecky said, yeah, you can attack, and Vollering took the win. So it's easy as that in cycling.
if you write it as the works, it is, yeah.
All right. Next round is about the most disappointing team this spring.
Well, I might get some guy on Twitter a little bit angry. It's Astana is my disappointment this spring and this cycling season in general. There was some fuss on Twitter about why is Astana always seen as the most disappointing team, but is Groupama, who has as much of almost none victories. But Astana has been really disappointing, we need to be honest. They didn't play a single role in the spring classics, except Velasco, of course, in Liège. But otherwise,
Lutsenko?
Where did Lutsenko
Amstel
Amstel Gold Race, 4th place.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I
still,
expected more from them. They were
are they still
nowhere
having troubles with finances? Or
yeah,
I think so,
they
yeah.
have. But they have trouble with finances, but they can pay Cavendish and Bull. Those guys aren't riding in the peloton for 2x a month. So, yeah.
What struck me the most about Astana was the fact that all of a sudden Cavendish had to be at the start of almost all classics, even the hilly ones in the Flemish Ardennes. So I don't know. Don't they have enough riders to replace him? Or
Without being disrespectful, but when you looked at the start list for the E3, for the Ronde van Vlaanderen, and looked up Astana, that team was horrendous. There were, I knew almost no riders in there, or I recognize the names, don't understand me wrong. But, yeah.
Do you think they have better riders to put in those races that fit those races better?
No, but their transfer, how they do transfers, like I might get Josh a bit mad, but taking in Cavendish takes a lot of budget, I think. Same for Bull. And their squad just isn't good enough in depth. They have one or two. They have Lutsenko. They have, who's in there as well? Lutsenko, Cavendish, and one other rider. I don't remember his name, but it's not a classic rider.
Gleb Syriza, the beast.
Syriza, the beast.
Moscon.
Moscon, yeah, but where was he this season? He almost won the heroic Paris-Roubaix last year or 2 years ago, but after that,
I think
nothing.
I think it's pretty sad for a pro Conti team, for instance, to see the lineup of Astana in those big races, knowing that they might be able to do the same, I think.
Yeah, completely agree with that. They take away a World Tour spot in the classics that maybe a pro Conti team can perform better and make the race even more attractive if they are at the start. But they
Sure.
fully deserve to be World Tour. They had the UCI points, so
Josh?
Yeah, so I've gone for Intermarché, which might be a little bit controversial, I don't know. But they started the season off so well, didn't they? They had Rui Costa winning one of the Spanish week-long races, and they kind of dominated the Mallorca races, the series of 4 one-day races, didn't they? And then Costa came 4th in Strada, and you think, oh, you know, this could be a really big classic season for them. And then Tyson won or didn't win, depending on who you ask and what camera you look at, against Ewan the next day, and everything seemed to be going well for them. And then it just kind of stopped. They kind of fizzled out. Tyson won I think it was one race, it might have been a one pro race, and actually had a really quite a solid season, classic season. But the rest of the team just, they weren't all that active at the front of the race even. They didn't really place all that well. Had looked through their results, and the best one seems to be Rex at Roubaix, came 9th, which, you know, is a solid result in that race, and he's had a decent season as well. But I don't know, for a team that kind of started the season with so much momentum and energy, they just kind of seem to fizzle out into, I don't even want to say disappointment, because they, you know, if you told them at the start of the season these are the races they were going to win, they probably would have taken it. But they didn't kind of build on what they already had, I think.
there was a lot of bad luck involved as well in those classic races. Girmay didn't perform like he had to or people expected, but there were a lot of crashes as well for the team, and that can be a reason why they aren't up there on the result sheets.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if Girmay had been performing and gone and won, you know, something like E3 or Ghent-Wevelgem, then yeah, they wouldn't be on there. But I think as a squad, they just didn't perform to the level I kind of would have hoped.
Yeah, I agree. I had Hugo Page in my wheeler manager. He might have been the surprise of the season. That's what I was thinking before opening weekend, but yeah, it turned out to be different. Kind of disappointed in him, but in Mike Teunissen, for instance, as well. If you mentioned Girmay, I tipped him as the winner of Milan-San Remo. Was completely wrong as well. But the guy crashed hard in Tour of Flanders. Yeah, wasn't the best season.
Is there
for
something
Intermarché.
wrong with Girmay, or why doesn't it work out this season and last year it did?
Well, I think he had his breakthrough year last year, and maybe for riders like Evenepoel, Pogacar, Van Aert, Van der Poel, it's normal to confer what they did the year before, but I don't think we should see that as the new normal. Some riders, they need some more time to adapt. I don't know. So let's hope in the second part of the season we get to see Girmay in his best form again.
Yeah, agreed. For me, I think I'm gonna kick in an open door and have Soudal-QuickStep as my disappointing team. Yes, they got their win in at the last second with Liège, but the rest of the classic season was absolutely horrible and sort of in line with last year as well. And we've talked about it before, where they're transitioning to be a Grand Tour team, stage race team, but still with riders like an Asgreen, Lampard, and Alaphilippe, you should be at least competitive at these classics, and they're just not. And it's just very sad to see, because all of those are really good riders.
I've been very harsh towards QuickStep in the last episode, if I recall correctly, or the episode before that. But now they've won Liège, it's a monument. How much teams can say they've won a monument in the Spring Classic?
The team that rode Liège is a completely different team than what did the rest of the classics. So that's basically their Grand Tour team coming in to save their classic season. The actual classics team was definitely a failure. I think we have to see those as two different teams, because they don't share a single rider.
I agree with that.
A lot of those riders that are in their contract here, I think. Who do you think should be afraid of his place within the team?
The one who earns most, I think.
So we're talking about Alaphilippe.
Lefebvre wants to free up money to make the Remco squad stronger, to go to the Tour de France in 2024. It's not a secret anymore that he's going to the Tour if nothing major happens next season. But the squad needs to be stronger. And with an Alaphilippe, who earns a lot of money because he has that double world championship in his back, I think he's the first one who needs to go, in my opinion. Sadly, it's sad to see, because I like Alaphilippe. He's one of those riders on the level of a Van Aert, a Pogacar, a Van der Poel, and he's 100% fit. He already proved he can follow them. I just hope he's not going to a French team who pays him a load of money, because it's not going to work out in an AG Desert or a Cofidis or an Arkea.
Yeah, to be continued. You already mentioned the team of my biggest disappointment of this spring. As you might know, I'm a pretty big Oliver Naassen fan, but yeah, Ollie and the other Belgians at AG Desert once again disappointed. This morning I looked up their best performances. Oliver Naassen's best performance of this Classics campaign was an 18th place at Gent-Wevelgem. Greg van Avermaet ended up 26th in Amstel Gold Race, and Stan de Wulf 18th in E3 Saxo Bank Classic. So I think we can agree that's pretty bad.
Yeah, I think we can definitely talk about the year too many for Greg van Avermaet, a rider who was very dominant 5 to 6 years ago, and now just is nowhere, but probably still takes up a pretty good paycheck at AG Desert.
And he already mentioned he was doubting about his future, I think, so he already mentioned the fact that it could be his last year on the bike. Do you think that would be the smartest decision?
Yeah, he should quit.
Yeah.
And what about Oliver Naassen? I think he has a kind of a domestique future in him, if he wants to. He already proved that he could be a very loyal domestique. For instance, at the time with Romain Bardet. But to be the Classics leader, I think that time's behind us.
I think the best thing for him is to leave the team and find a new challenge. I don't know what team that would be, but a team where he's not the leader, where he can actually work for someone and bring his knowledge of the country with him.
He should do the same as Tim Wellens. Tim Wellens left Lotto and went to UAE, and we saw a completely different Tim Wellens. I'm not saying Oliver Naassen will make that jump in performance, but a new environment, a new team, new leaders can do big things for a rider if he's confident, if people trust him. So he should leave AG Desert, I think, and he should accept that he will earn less money as well, because he earns quite a bit at AG Desert. Same for Greg van Avermaet.
Were you going to add something, Josh?
No, I'm just going to agree with Bram, really. I mean, he kind of burst onto the scene, didn't he? And he seemed to be getting better every season. He won the Belgian champs, didn't he? And you kind of think, oh, the big win's just around the corner. And then it just kind of never happened. He came second, I think, at San Remo a couple of years ago. Well, let's give it 2019. And just he's never punched through, has he? I mean, I don't know how many pro wins he's got, but it can't be into double digits, can it? He's not taken any of the big classics or anything. Just a bit of a shame that it seems to have fizzled out.
All right. Let's get all those disappointments behind us and move over to the big moments once again. Next round is about your rider of the classics.
I've chosen a rider who is once again not mainstream, but performed on a very high level the whole first part of the season. Mats Pedersen rode exceptionally strong from Omloop till Roubaix.
We need to work on your definition of mainstream. This is, I agree with you, but he's definitely mainstream.
No, it's mainstream if you Pogacar, Van der Poel, Van Aert, Evenepoel.
Okay.
That's mainstream.
Okay.
He's the best of the rest.
Okay, yeah, that's I like that.
Yeah, I think we need to give Yves some credit here. When he said Ghana was a non-mainstream pick for Roubaix, I didn't agree. But here we're talking about the rider of the spring, and then I think Pedersen is, kind of a hot take.
Thank you, Hannes.
Congratulations.
I love you.
Josh?
Well,
Who's
I'm
yours?
not going to claim to have a hot take. It was Mathieu van der Poel, wasn't it? I think
Boring.
it may be boring, but I think it's true.
Yeah.
There is a world in which he won 3 monuments in the course of a month, right? And that's just crazy. I mean, obviously he didn't. He won 2, but he was only stopped from winning 3 by possibly by the best bike rider in the world. So yeah, I think he was just dominant. Like you said, that attack up the Poggio was just superb, wasn't it? And then he was probably the most active rider in Roubaix, so I think he deserved that one as well. He's a beast.
All right, Bram. I think we have the same name.
It's the ice cold take of Tadej Pogacar. If you're talking about people who can perform from the whole spring season, I think Pogacar has brought it, not just in one-day classics, but in the stage races as well, winning Paris-Nice, winning Ronde, and Amstel, Flèche Wallonne. So just such a long period of time where he's just super strong. Of course, you have the guys like Van der Poel and Van Aert. Beating them on their turf is just insane to me.
The greatest of the decade.
Where is Remco?
He only rode 1 race, so
But
I mean,
he's going to
and
be,
a
he's
state-
going to
couple
be a
state
rider of the
races.
season at the end, so...
I mean, he's going to be the rider of May. Let's put it that way.
All right, I had the Tadej Pogacar as well, so let's move over to the women. I picked Demi Vollering. Was doubting between Lotte Kopecky and Vollering, but in the end, Vollering, she won a huge amount of big races, and she was one of the strongest women in the pack. But still, I want to mention the name of Marlene Reusser. Kudos to her, because if that was your pick,
Reusser was my pick.
I'll give you your moment of fame then.
She was very strong in Gent-Wevelgem, and she was very strong the full classic season. She played a major role in the wins from Vollering and from Kopecky. She rode the Flemish Classics and the Ardennes Classics, where in Liège she was on her own by a while, making the others to chase. So yeah, not a lot more to explain than that she had a great first part of the season.
Exactly. Josh, aren't you sweating by that hot take?
No, I think that's a perfectly valid answer. I've also gone for Demi Vollering. I mean, just on a different level. I don't really have much to add. She's just insane.
Bram? You
yeah, Vollering. I mean, if you win that many races, of course, Reusser is a valid pick. Very on character for Eve to go for the hot pick. But I think if you win the amount of races that Vollering has won, you kind of have to be the riders of the classic season.
Why is everyone saying Vollering and not Kopecky? I'm just curious because Kopecky was exceptional as well.
Because Vollering won more.
Purely because she had more victories.
And the way that she got them as well. I think Kopecky's wins are great. And Kopecky was instrumental in a lot of Vollering's wins and the other way around. But just purely the balance of, like winning the Flemish Classics and being competitive there, and then also being really good in the Ardennes Classics. It's just there's more breadth to Vollering than there is to Kopecky at the moment.
Yeah, and I think the only thing you could say she missed, like the big races, was Flanders, in which Kopecky won. So it's kind of hard. If you lose to your teammate, it's kind of not as big a loss, I guess I'd say. So yeah, I agree with Bro.
Yeah, but you can also say Kopecky crashed in Roubaix and was able to crawl her way back to the front almost. That front group was just out of reach. And the Amstel she could have won herself, but she made Vollering win the Amstel. But I completely agree with the Vollering pick. If you look at the results, she performed on a very high level.
Besides Vollering and Kopecky, there were also a lot of riders who really improved their level the past few months. So let's move over to the most improved rider of the classics.
Yeah, let's start with the women's peloton, I think. I was really impressed by Realini. We saw her for the first time in the Spring Classics in La Flèche Wallonne, if I recall correctly, where she rode a very strong race, or was it Amstel? It was Flèche Wallonne. And then I had a talk with Hannes about it. What could she do in Liège? And at that moment I said Liège is too hard and too long for her at this point in her career to perform. But she proved me wrong. She performed very strong in Liège as well. So yeah, she improved. Last year she won a race, I think, or was it this year in February? I don't know.
No, she was, I think, there for Longoborghini on Jebel Hafid in UAE Women's Tour.
Yeah. So yeah, she improved a lot the last 2 months for me, because I didn't really knew her before the UAE Tour.
Good pick. I think someone else has another rider of Trek Segafredo women.
I have Van Androoy written down. I don't know if it's most improved, but winning was it the Trofeo Binda in the way that she did, and then also always being competitive in the classics that she rode while working for the team, and sort of being played as a backup card because their original leader doesn't work out, and still getting good results. Is just such a show of potential, and so that's why I have her as most improved.
Josh?
Yeah, it's a bit boring, but I'm going to stick with Fife for Georgia. She's really, genuinely, seriously impressed me this classic season. She's just so strong, and she's 22. Her birthday is like in the same month as mine, which is kind of scary because she's crazy strong. But it seems like almost every race she got stronger. Like she had a great performance at Roubaix. She had a great performance at Strade Bianca. She obviously won Bruges de Pan, and I just think the sky's the limit. If she keeps progressing as she has done the past couple of seasons, she could be right up there challenging in every kind of one-day race, and maybe even the kind of more hilly races. It kind of remains to be seen where her limits are. So I'm quite excited to watch that for the next couple of years.
The sky is the limit. Can we say the same
Exactly.
about Ben Healy? I think everyone has Ben Healy as their most improved rider. If you don't, yeah, non-mainstream guy, of course. Anyone wants a word about Ben Healy?
Yeah, so a little personal anecdote. In 2021, he did a time trial, 25-mile time trial, about 10 kilometers from where I live. And it was the most hideous day. It was hailing, it was cold, it was windy, and he put something like 4 minutes into the field. And he was still racing for Trinity at the time, the Continental team. And I don't know, ever since then, I've kind of gone, yeah, this guy's going to be serious, because it was the most disgusting weather. It was like, I think it was the summertime as well, and it was like 12 degrees and hailing. That's Britain for you. And I just think he kind of had an okay season last season riding for EF, and I feel like this season he sees that potential, hasn't he? I think if you have been following him relatively closely, you know what he's capable of. You know the engine he's got, and it just seems like he's shown it in these last couple of races.
Let's move over to Yves.
My most improved rider is Paulus, but the classic edition of the guy. He showed himself in the Tour de France last year and getting in the top 10 in the general classification in Paris. But he never rode Flemish Classics before this season. And he proved he's capable to ride them on a very high level as well. It was the Vlaanderen, the Ronde van Vlaanderen. He was always in the mix. And I didn't expect him, to be honest, to perform on that level his first time here.
Can I ask you why you pick Paulus and not Jurgensen, for instance?
It's the same for Jurgensen. Both Americans as well.
But you like Paulus more.
I like Paulus, yeah. I like the EF kid, so.
Valid. Bram, you had Ben Healy as well?
Yeah, I mean, a very similar reasons to Josh. I think he's
mainstream.
Doesn't make it less true.
All right. Last round is about the most exciting race of this Classics campaign.
That was difficult for me. Because to be honest, I liked every single race we witnessed this spring's Classics. I heard a lot of different things on Twitter, that it was boring, it was predictable, it's always the same who wins. Why do we have to look? We just need to look at the results, and there's always Tadej Pogacar on the first place. But to be honest, I don't agree. Every single race we saw a lot of action. The races opened up extremely early, and the leaders were isolated with 100 k's to go. Who would have thought that 5 or 6 years ago that racing would be like that? And they were with 3, talking about Van Aert, Van der Poel and Pogacar in some races. But you never knew who was gonna win that one. So it was exciting every single race for me. But if I have to pick one, it's the E3. That was an exceptional race in the men's race, and then the Strade for the women. I don't have to explain that one.
Because of the horse, of course.
Because of the horse and because of the photo finish at the line.
Josh, tell us more.
Yeah, so I think I've gone for a non-mainstream pick, so we'll see if it passes the test. I've gone for Dwars d'Or, Vlaanderen. I thought that was an exceptional race. I think I might be wrong, but I think it was the only race of the Spring Classics that it looked like the breakaway could actually win it at one point, and I'm excluding Flanders in that because that was kind of a different scenario. But that performance by Lascano was just amazing, wasn't it? I mean, he just would not get taken back in by the peloton, and then to sprint to second after just drilling it on the front for the last however long, I thought I was quite good. It wasn't the most exciting finale because the Port just soloed off and it was pretty obvious he was going to win straight away. But I think it had something that none of the other classics did, which was that kind of true outsider or outsiders in the men's quarters at least, going for the win or potentially going for the win. So I thought that was pretty good. And then in the women's, I went for Paris-Roubaix, which is the obvious answer, I know, but it was just superb, wasn't it? On that long drag up to the velodrome, you could see the two groups separated by like 10 seconds, and you knew they were going to get caught, and somehow they didn't. And any finish like that is always going to be exciting, and I think it's more exciting in hindsight knowing they didn't get caught. But overall, I agree with it was a good classic season, and I think the people who said it was boring were watching different races to me.
So now you're a fanboy of Alison Jackson's TikTok account.
Yeah, she popped up on it actually the other day, and I was like, "Oh, you're the first to win Paris-Roubaix." But they are quite entertaining. So, but yeah, I mean, what a performance by her!
I want a rock. Oh, that TikTok is crazy.
It was her teammate on the massage bed, and who she'd roped into it, who clearly had no clue what was going on. It was just, her expression was brilliant. That whole kind of saga was great.
All right, Bram, you're the last one.
With men's races, it has to be E3. I think I'm right in saying that is the only classic that ended on a sprint. All the rest were solo Well, you can't be able to get doesn't count because
that wasn't a sprint. You should have been one.
That was also not a sprint. So only one race that finishes on a sprint, and with those three, it's pretty amazing. And then with the women Paris-Roubaix as well, just the break going for it, it's something we rarely see, and just it's a magical win.
All right, with those magical words, we can close the episode and the classic season. What's next for this podcast? Yves, I think the two of us will make a Giro d'Italia preview next week, discussing all of the participating teams at the start in Italy. So bring on your best Italian.
Only 5 minutes about Remco Evenepoel. Looking forward to that it's only 5 minutes. And not
Is it only going to be a 5-minute podcast?
No, it's not all about Remco.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to be there, so that's good.
You will bring limoncello and pizza.
Limoncello and pizza. Oh.
All right, Bram. It's all yours.
Well, that's a wrap for today's Domestique Cycling Podcast. A big thank you to our audience for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, consider supporting us on Ko-Fi, link in the description. And if you are on YouTube, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you next time for the Giro. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
I've got the spores, the sickness.